right, so resistance and volume flow rate. All right, so the relationship between viscosity viscosity, vessel length, and vessel diameter can be represented mathematically by this equation. Okay, so we have resistance, and that basically equals 8N L over pi r to the fourth, okay, where N is the viscosity of blood, L is the length of the vessel, and R, of course, is the radius of the vessel lumen. So we already talked about how this kind of affects it. Viscosity thickens the blood. Blood that's thicker doesn't flow as well as thinner blood, and the length of a vessel, the longer it is, the more resistance there is, and of course the radius can be bigger or smaller, and that affects resistance as well. Okay, so when we talk about blood vessel diameter, blood vessel diameter basically controls the resistance to blood flow. So blood flow, which we'll call Q, equals to delta P, the change in pressure, over the resistance. So if we substitute this equation for R, we would get delta P, the change in pressure, over 8NL over pi r to the fourth, which ends up being, when we rearrange everything, pi r4 delta P over 8NL. That is an actual equation. It's called Poiseuille's equation. It's an equation that has to do with fluid dynamics or whatever. And it's basically volume flow rate. So just looking at that, we have, here's viscosity, here's length. We could change viscosity, but that would be hard, changing the thickness of blood just to deal with, blood pressure. The length of the length of a vessel is basically constant. It is what it is. It's as long as it is, right? So there's basically two things left to deal with: the radius and the pressure. Okay, that change in pressure. And we know we can manipulate the pressure through the heart, right? So basically the body adjusts the radius of small arteries to meet metabolic demand. metabolic demand of organs and tissues. And it adjusts the radius basically of arterioles, which feed capillary beds, which makes the most effect. I mean, r to the fourth here, divide that through, that makes a huge effect if you change that number, since it's to the fourth power there. Now we could change pressure. I mean, as again, the heart can change the pressure. So you could, so if the body manipulates or changes the pressure, like through the heart, instead of the vessels, then you get higher pressure going through capillary beds, and that's going to break vessels. So you end up with broken vessels or decreased perfusion. So the arterioles know when the capillary beds that they're feeding need things and when they don't. And they can feel the pressure on the outside going on and can, change their shape in order to not put too much pressure into the capillary bed. So the radius has the most effect on that volume flow rate, that Q number. So an increased radius, again, decreases resistance, and that increases volume flow rate. Okay, a decreased radius is increased resistance and will decrease volume flow rate. So that is going to be through vasodilation and vasoconstriction. All right, so let's put all this together. So we need to look at exactly what's going to happen between heart and vessels as far as blood pressure homeostasis. We'll look at that next.